Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Extraordinary Drummer Show. As you know, I'm your host, Cheron Moore. Today, I tell you, boy, we got a cat on the show. Now, I know they're saying dogs now, but in my generation, we said cats. Remember that, John? We got a cat on the show today. I tell you, what a body of work, what a history, what a body of just knowledge and history this guy has. He made a lot of drummers famous. I'm going to tell you that, boy. And a lot of drummers rich, too. And I'm really happy he's on the show. You all know who he is. You'll remember him as an artist rep over at Zildjian, president over at Viper, which we're going to talk about. Plays with the and played with the band Theft Auto. Of course, he's right now doing the exciting podcast, Modern Drummer podcast, live from my room, which we can see his room there. What an awesome room it is. He's a drummer's drummer. And a businessman, which I've never said that phrase before. Would you help me welcome to the Extraordinary Drummer Show today, John DeChristopher. Hey, John.
All right. Thank you, Cheron. What a great intro, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I'll dive right in. You're from Massachusetts?
Yes, I am. Yep. Just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, about 20 miles, a little town called Cohasset on the water. Nice little town. Yeah.
You know, tell me, how did you get acclimated to drums, and when did you get your first drum kit?
I got my first drum kit. It'll be 50 years this coming Christmas, 1972. Actually, my birthday is the week before Christmas, so it was my 12th birthday and Christmas, 1972, 50 years ago. But I was born in 1960, and I was interested in the drums, as a kid, like everybody, and had the benefit of all those great bands and all that great music from the 60s to influence me. Bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all the great Motown bands. And then, as I said, around the summer of 1972, I got really, the bug sort of really took hold, and I really got interested in playing the drums. I bought a pair of sticks, and it just that became it for me,
How'd you get your first kit? Mom and dad, grandparents?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It was a Christmas present, combination birthday and Christmas present. And I didn't have any lessons, so I'm self-taught, and it was a real sort of gamble that my dad took that I was going to, stick with it. And I remember having those conversations and my parents saying, what, you don't know how to play the drums. What are you doing? But I'm probably like yourself and a lot of people. There was a natural, at least some amount of natural ability there for me to at least understand, playing along to records. And I did that for the first kind of year or so. I got in a band, but after playing about a year, and things just took off from there.
John, take me to high school over at Melrose High. What was the scene there?
There was some great times. Yeah, as I said, I got into a band in junior high school, and by the time I got into high school, I was in a band that was playing all our school dances, and remember, this is the mid 1970s, so there was a real strong music scene. Like there were events that bands could do, like high school dances and church functions and things like that. So my band worked a lot. We were all like 14, 15 years old, but we gigged almost every week, and I did that all through high school and junior high school.
John, I know EU Wurlitzer was a very important time in your life. Tell me about it. You had a lot of friends over there, huh? Yeah,
that was a huge part of my career, really. I mean, it was a big stepping stone. I took a year off after high school. I took a gap year between high school and college, and I was all set to go to Berkeley College right here in Boston. And I ended up getting this job at EU Wurlitzer, this music store it's gone now, but it was located, ironically, around the corner from Berkeley, and right in downtown Boston. And things just sort of took off for me there. I worked in the drum department. After being there about a year or so, I was promoted to the manager of the drum department. And, I met all these incredible people that later became big figures in my life, in my musical career, in terms of Armin Zildjian, Lenny DiMuzio, my boss from my first company in the industry, which was Simmons Drums. This guy named Glenn Thomas came in, and we had the first Simmons drum clinic there in 1982, and Glenn and I hit it off. And then a couple of years later, he hired me when I moved out to LA to work for Simmons Drums, and that was what sort of got me into the industry. It was an amazing time. One last person who I shouldn't leave out is my late father-in-law, Vic Firth, who I also met when I was working there as who would have thought years later I'd marry his daughter, Kelly, but I'm sure Vic didn't think that.
Let's talk about DW Drums. How'd you get that job?
Well, while I was working at Simmons, I'd met Don Lombardi, who's the founder of Drum Workshop, DW Drums. And, we'd become friendly just from seeing each other around town, whether it was at a clinic at West LA Music or at a NAMM show. And I was living in LA at the time. This would have been, by this time, it was 1986. And one night I got a phone call from Don. He got my number from someone and basically said, I'm looking to, again, this was before DW Drums or anything more than just him and John Good making the drums in the garage. I mean, Don said, I'm looking to really expand the drum business and get serious about it. I need someone who can do artist relations and sales. And that's what I'd been doing at Simmons. And he said, would you be interested in coming up and meeting and talking about it? So I went up and drove up to, in those days they were in Thousand Oaks, Newbury Park, which wasn't too far from where I was in the valley. And I drove up and one night after work and I met with him and he took me around the little shop they had at the time. And I liked Don. I liked him as a person immediately. He's still one of my best friends. And I love the idea of being at the ground level of this American drum company. And so I went to work for him. And that was in November of 1986. And then we introduced, officially launched DW Drums in January of 1987. So.
I didn't know you was with them that early. They were known for making seats or something then.
That's right.
Wow.
Pedals, foot pedals, hi-hats, seats. And it was before Zildjian. So I worked for Don for 2.5 years before I went to work for Zildjian.
Let's talk about Zildjian. Zildjian made you a rock star over there, man. and 40 years at Zildjian, almost 40 years?
Not that long, actually. I worked there from 89 to 2013, so like 24 years, basically.
Okay.
It felt like 40 years. Underwater. No, I'm kidding.
So then, over at Zildjian, first tell me how did you get the job, and what was the scene like over there?
Well, it was a similar situation where I happened to be at the NAMM show, and this would have been January of '89. I was working for DW. I'd moved back east, which is where I'm from here on the East Coast. I'd moved back at the end of 1988. Don flew me out to the NAMM show in January of '89 to work for DW. I spent a week out there at the factory and at the NAMM show and everything. And I was just walking around and I dropped by the Zildjian booth to say hello to some friends that I knew there, like we always do at the NAMM show. And a friend of mine named Colin Schofield, who was the marketing person at the time, said, "I heard you're back in Boston." And I said, "Yeah, I moved back a few months ago." And long story short is he said, "Would you be interested in coming down and meeting with us? We might have a position available. We have an opening that we think you'd be interested in," or something along those lines. We thought you might be interested in. And I was curious, and I said, "Well, what is it?" And he was a little guarded about it, didn't want to talk too much about it until I came down there. So I went down and met with him and found out it was artist relations, and that Lenny DiMuzio, who was the director of artist relations at the time at Zildjian, was going to be moving over to education. So this created this opening to have someone come in, and I had a history, or a background, I should say, of working in artist relations. So, I came down and I liked what I saw. I went back for another interview with Armin Zildjian, And I mean, it was a process, Cheron, that took, I want to say, my first visit down there was February, and I didn't start until May. And there were a couple of months of back and forth, and it all worked out fine in the end. But we had to work out the business side of it, because I was in a good situation at DW, and if nothing else, this is a good lesson for people watching this, that if you're going to take a job in the industry, make sure you're getting paid what you're worth. And my feeling at that time was DW drums are on the rise. I'm starting to make money. This company is going to go somewhere, and they certainly did. And I just felt like, for me to now walk away and take a job with a company that I'm not getting, I was getting a commission on the DW drums that I was selling. So to leave all that behind, I just wanted to be sure that I wasn't going to hurt myself. We had a 2-year-old son and had another child on the way. My daughter was born later that year. So, I was just thinking ahead, and in the end, it all worked out great. As I said, I made the right move going to Zildjian. I feel it compensated me well at that time and continued to over the years. So
let's do some drum technique talk. What do you think of this thing, gospel chops? What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's amazing, the technique that some of the drummers, like, and I say young drummers, but really all drummers, but like younger drummers are so much more advanced than I was at that age. You know what I mean? I can just, I marvel at what some of the younger drummers have in the way of chops.
Here's a question staying with drum techniques. What's the difference between a Zildjian cymbal and a Sabian cymbal?
Probably about $10. No. For the moon. I'm here all week, folks. I'm here all week.
Be sure to tip the waitress. Huh?
Yeah, that's right. Be sure to tip the waitress.
Well, got some other questions. I might bounce around really quickly, but
sure.
Tell me about what's going on over at Viper. You having a good time over there?
Yeah, I started that. I guess I started doing that about 8 years ago. It was a little while after I left Zildjian. It started with me helping Steve Gadd with some things that he was doing, solo projects he was doing, and needing like representation and management. And then Peter Erskine kind of jumped in with me, and my friend Rick Murata, who's a well-known studio drummer, and Danny Serafin, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, it was going along pretty well, and it's still going. But the pandemic a couple of years ago definitely slowed everybody's kind of amount of work.
Talk a little bit about quickly about that live from my drum room, the Modern Drummer podcast. How did that come about?
So, a couple of years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was, it's hard to explain it, but I guess I was, like a lot of people, I was looking for something to do. It's just, the thought of kind of being in lockdown. This would have been in April or May of 2020. I was looking for ways to just stay motivated, keep people motivated, keep things positive. And the idea of doing these things with people like yourself, drummer friends, entertaining people. I wasn't trying to make money doing it. I just wanted to just keep people feeling positive at a time when it was a pretty tough time for people. A lot of people knowing that they weren't going to work for maybe a whole year or at least 6 months. And so it was kind of a difficult time for a lot of people. And it's, we're still dealing with it, obviously, 2 years later. So it started off as kind of a fun little thing that just took off, and it started building more and more. And I had more and more people wanting to be involved in it. It was nice to be able to kind of pick up the phone and call some of my drummer friends and know that they had the time to do it. Whereas they were just sitting at home, where normally it would be hard to track some of these guys down if they were on the road or doing something else, So they couldn't give me an excuse like I'm too busy. It's like, oh, okay, I got nothing else to do. And then earlier this year, I want to say it was around January, February of this year, I was contacted by David Frangione, who's the CEO and publisher of Modern Drummer magazine, an old friend of mine who was actually a customer at Wurlitzer Music, as you mentioned earlier. He's from Boston. He lives down in Florida now, but he owns the magazine. And he said, he called me one day and he said, I want to make your show the Modern Drummer podcast. How can we make that happen? And to his credit, he basically gave me everything I asked for. And I say that and just because I had this show that I'd built and it was starting to take off, and but he was very genuine and sincere about really wanting to make it work with Modern Drummer. So we're doing this now, and it's Live from My Drum Room, Modern Drummer podcast, and I'm having fun. It's going well.
You are back on the drum kit now, huh?
Yeah, whether people like it or not, I'm back on the drum kit.
That's good. I gotta remember that one. What'd it feel like? How's your hands?
Great. Not bad. I played the other night. My band played this past Saturday night. Felt like I had a pretty good night. I stopped when I met you, which had to be maybe 30 years ago. We were trying to figure that out, Kelly and I, like when I met you in early 90s, right? Maybe early to mid 90s. Yeah. So, I had stopped playing for about 20 years, Cheron. I mean, from about that time, the early 90s until I left Zildjian in 2013, I had some drums in my office and I'd sort of tap a little bit, but I wasn't really playing drums like we play drums, you know what I mean? And so anyway, now that I had the time, I wasn't going to be traveling, I wasn't going to be sitting in an office all day. I really got back into it. I joined this band, as you mentioned. It's actually called Grand Theft Audio. It's a little play on words. We say, we steal music, not cars. But but it's a bunch of like cover rock music that we do from our favorite bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and bands like that. And so we play out every week pretty much, and it's a bunch of my old friends from when we were kids, and it's a blast, man. We're having a great time.
Thing on the show that we call Word of Advice, where I ask the drummers if they will leave a parting word of advice for the up-and-comer guys, or even the guys at the next level, but that are trying to get traction in this game. Would you leave them a word of advice, please?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I get asked this a lot. Excuse me. I'm gonna take a sip of water, Sean, because this could be a little bit of a long-winded answer. So
we got about 8 minutes. I got 2
more. All right. I'll keep it to 7:59. No, I get asked a lot, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to specifically, but I get asked a lot about endorsements because, as you know, that's what I did for many years, as vice president at Zildjian. And in my advice would be when it comes to endorsing instruments, for example, drum company, cymbal company, guitar company, whatever company, play the equipment that you would go into a music store and buy anyway. Play the stuff that you love. That's not, it's not something you're forcing yourself to have to like or use because you have some sort of a business arrangement with this company. And you and I know as drummers, it seems so obvious and so simple. But I think for a lot of young guys coming up, like you said, the up and comers, I think there's this idea that the ultimate goal as a drummer is to get all these endorsement deals with companies. And I had this conversation with Tommy Igo not too long ago. Tommy was a guest on my show, and he actually really did a great job explaining this and really laying it out. But again, unlike when I was coming up, and I think you're younger than me, but when you were coming up, we wanted to play great music. We wanted to be in a good band. We wanted to make a living. It was really all about that stuff. It was about music and being the best you could be at your instrument. And I think I saw this certainly during my time at Zildjian. It became, at least for some amount of people, more about I can measure my success by the deal I can make with a drum company, or the deal I can get a free set of drums from this drum company, or I can get some cymbals from this company. And they're losing sight of the fact that it all starts with, being proficient on your instrument, being a good guy or gal, respecting the companies that you're involved with, respecting other musicians, other drummers, and being known as a good person. That's going to get you way further than any of these other things we're talking about.
I truly believe that, and I think for us to have to pay for what you just gave would be really expensive. A lot of years and a lot of expense. Let me ask you this one.
Sure.
In closing, John, what would you want your legacy to be said, to be told?
Wow, man. You get into the deep stuff here, Cheron. This is good. I got to remember this stuff for my show. I'd want my legacy to be somebody that was fair and honest and cared about the people that he worked with. I will say this about myself. I feel like I always did try to put the companies that I worked for first. I tried to be a good soldier for the companies that I worked for, and as part of that, I tried to help a lot of drummers along the way, and really support and nurture careers as best I could when there was a time in the industry when you could do those kinds of things. And I mentioned a couple of drummers just a few minutes ago, like Tony Royster and Thomas Pridgeon and even Tommy Igo, and people that I met when they were coming up, that I recognized the talent that they had, and I knew that if I was in a position to help them. But the thing about this, Cheron, is that it's, there's only so much when you're working for a company that you can do, but knowing that what little I could do would certainly help some of these guys, whether it was get them on a modern drum festival, or getting them a slot at the Montreal Drum Fest, or, getting them more exposure. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I would want my legacy to be that someone that really truly tried to help promote drumming and drummers, and help people.
And certainly you have done that in a humongous and on his way, and we are grateful. Let me say thank you so very much for being on the Extraordinary Drummer Show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sorry we had to rush along then. There's so much more here I want to talk about. You once said, no good deed goes unpunished. And I really want to get into that, but we might have to do it at another time. Would you help us wave goodbye to all the fans?
Absolutely. I want to shout out to our friends, Stan and Jerry at Pro Drum Shop too, showing them some love. So hit them up for some advertising for this, Cheron.
Absolutely.
That's worth a couple $100 anyway, right there. So, all right.
I actually had them on the show, and it did well.
Oh, good.
Again, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Cheron. I thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure's
All the
ours.
best to you. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. Even if you didn't enjoy it, give it a like. Tell your friends to give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, all my shows are available as podcasts at all the podcast platforms. So until next time, I'll see you soon, live from my drum room. Thanks for watching. Peace.